So there I was. It's 9 o'clock at night. I'm standing in my kitchen and my son needs a pin for the security system. He's just gotten his learner's permit, as terrifying as it is, which means a ton of his friends are already driving, which means he's going to be out on his own, and I need to get him access back into the house after dark. I need to give him a 4-digit number so the door doesn't scream at him when he walks through it. That's the whole task. 4 digits, one kid, one door. I opened the myADT site in the browser. I've used the site for years. I know everything lives. I know that the user panel is 2 taps in. I know adding a pin takes maybe 15 seconds if the Wi-Fi is being nice to me. The interface on myADT, it's ugly. Sure, it's clunky. It's an old web-based interface. Lots of menus, lots of places to go. But it was visible. You could see your sensors, you could see your users, you could see your way mode and your history and the little panel that showed you the pictures of who armed the system last and when. It was a dashboard and it did the job. Ugly but functional. So there I am, I opened the setup and the dashboard is gone. Where the user panel used to be, there's this happy little chat bubble with a face on it. And the face is smiling at me and it says, "Hey, I'm Clippy, your new myADT assistant. How can I help you today?" I stared at the screen for a second, and I swear to you, my first thoughts was that I had been phished, and somehow my phone had been hacked and redirected to some other website. So I closed it down, I double-clicked the link, checked the address bar. There was Clippy. Same friendly face, same little warm welcome. So I typed, "All right, let's add a pin for my son." And the bot came back with a list. Well, which in retrospect is the part that broke me. It wasn't that the bot didn't understand. The bot totally understood. The bot understood all too well. The bot came back with a wall of options. Add a pin for a new user, add a pin for an existing user, set up a new user and assign a pin, create a temporary pin, modify an existing pin, delete a pin and replace it. It went on. It was like 24, 25 different things I could do with a pin. And as I read through the list, I realized something extremely unsettling. None of these were quite exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to add my son as a user and give him a code. Was that add a pin for a new user? Or was it set up a new user and assign a pin? What was the difference? The bot's not going to tell me because there's no preview. There's no menu. There's no little structure on the side that says, "Hey, here's what this option actually does before you actually do it." I had to pick one. I had to guess. And I want to pause on this for a second because the paradox of choice people have been writing about this for over 20 years, and it turns out they were right about something that none of us saw coming. Anyway, so I picked one, and guess what? It was wrong. The bot confirmed it had done a thing I hadn't asked it to do. I asked it to undo it, and instead of undoing it right away, it asked me to rephrase. What do you mean undo it? Did you want me to go back and change something else? So I rephrased. And then it offered me a new wall of options. I picked one, and I guessed wrong again. 20 minutes later, I'm completely frustrated. I'm like, I just want to add a pin for my son. 20 minutes, my phone in my hand, trying to add a 4-digit number so my kid wouldn't set up a siren if he entered late at night. The old interface would have done it in 15 seconds, like I said. The improved interface had me negotiating with a little text box like I was trying to bribe an ICE agent. I gave up. I called the 1-800 number. Samantha picked up. She said, "One moment, let me pull up your account." Went through all the security things, etc. And in the background, I heard her mouse clicking. Click, click, click. And then she said, "Okay, I'm adding a user for your son now. What PIN would you like?" I gave her the 4 digits. She read them back to me, and she said, "All set. You should be able to use that immediately." 15 seconds. And I said to Samantha, "What are you looking at your screen right now?" She said, "The ADT dashboard. What else?" And I said, "The old one with the user panel and everything?" She said, "Yeah, that's what we use." The dashboard wasn't gone. The dashboard was fine. The dashboard was right there in front of her, running on her monitor in some call center, who knows where, exactly as functional as it had been the last time I had gone to myADT to fix something else. They hadn't deleted it. They hadn't improved it. They hadn't even modernized it. They'd just taken it away from me. And here's a part that induced me to write this episode. The old dashboard, it's still there on my phone right now. It's buried behind a microscopic link in the corner of a page, 3 scrolls down, in a font size I'm pretty sure violates all sorts of accessibility laws. You can also turn on the new interface off in settings, and Samantha actually flipped that switch for me, thank God for that, before I hung up. But they're rolling it out to see how it does. Her words, rolling it out. This isn't some corporate power grab at more money. This is something else. This is sneakier. The scary part is they're not trying to make things worse. They're not trying to take the dashboard away. They're just hiding it. They're A/B testing how long it takes us to stop looking for it and quietly measuring whether we'll accept the chatbot as a new normal. They're not breaking the product. They're thinking that this AI interface is going to be better. As I hung up the phone and as I stood there in my kitchen, I realized that I was not looking at a UX problem anymore. I was looking at the shape of everything to come. I guess we should start back at the beginning. Let's talk about what's actually happening here, because this isn't a one company problem, and it isn't just me being a grumpy old developer who wants his menus back. Although, full disclosure, I am a grumpy old developer who wants my menus back. There's a word for this. Cory Doctorow coined it a few years back. He called it enshittification. Originally, it was describing the way a platform squeezes their users once they're logged in. First, the platform is awesome to user. Then it's awesome to the advertisers. Then it's good to its shareholders. And by the end, the thing that used to work awesome doesn't work anymore, and you can't leave because all your friends are still on it. Cleanest example of this is Uber. Remember Uber back in 2013? $5 rides, $10 rides across town. There were drivers everywhere. Prices that didn't make sense. Black car showed up in about 4 minutes for the cost of a sandwich. It was magical. It was also, of course, completely unsustainable. Uber was lighting $1 billion of venture capital on fire to do it. But that was the point. The cheap rides weren't a business model. They were bait. Uber was using investor money to undercut every taxi in a city until the taxi companies died. And once the taxis were gone, and the drivers had no other gig to fall back on, and the riders had deleted the Yellow Cab app off their phone, the prices started climbing and climbing and climbing. Now you get surge prices on a Tuesday. A ride to the airport costs more than the flight. The drivers are earning less. The riders are paying more. The middle, where the company sits, is getting fatter. That's enshittification in its purest form. Lure them in cheap, kill the alternative, and then squeeze. And I want you to hold this thought because we're going to come back to it. That's exactly what's happening with the AI companies right now. ChatGPT Plus was $20 a month with basically unlimited usage. Claude was the same. Gemini was free. The image generators were free. The coding assistants were free or nearly free. Everyone was burning cash to get you in the door, get you dependent, get you to fire your designers and your junior devs and your copywriters because, the AI can do it for a fraction of a cost. And now the rate limits are tightening. Now the good models are behind $200 a month tier. Soon it's going to be $400 a month tier. And now we're sorry, we've reached the usage cap. Please upgrade tier. The taxi companies of the creative economies are already half dead, and the meter, my friends, is just starting to run. Anyway, that's the original enshittification flavor. I want to talk about the new one. Call it the AI as a shortcut flavor. Call it chatbotification. Call it the slop economy. The version where a company looks at its product, looks at the cost of maintaining a good interface, looks at the price of a commodity language model, does the math, and says, what if we just had people talk to the thing? Wouldn't that make it easier and better for everyone? And the magic word here is easier, because easier is the word that gets us past the design review. Easier is a word that lets a PM put a green check mark next to a feature that is, measurably, obviously worse. Easier is a lie, just like the cake. Easier is the Trojan horse. And I'm going to spend the next 20 minutes of your life trying to convince you that when somebody replaces a menu with a chatbot and calls it easier, they're either lying to you or lying to themselves. Not really sure which one is worse. Think about things. Google search is arguably worse than it was in 2019, even though it's enhanced with AI. Gmail is worse. Windows settings is a fragmented mess that hides basic controls behind 6 layers of smart suggestions that don't work. Want to change your desktop background? Good luck trying to find that in the new interface. Photoshop has started burying tools behind AI sidebars that confidently do the wrong thing. And Office Copilot, it wants to write emails for you, which is maybe fine if you enjoy having your emails sounded like it was written by a press release generator. Sidebar, if you are running into that problem, I do have an open source tool called gbits that you can go grab off my website. Anyway, Amazon, Search can't even find a product you're holding in your hand anymore. None more that scanning. It always comes up with these weird suggestions. The apps on your phone update every week, and every week you notice that one more button has been replaced by a friendly little face that wants you to have a conversation. This is not a coincidence. This is the insidious AI overlord takeover strategy. And all those helpful chatbots, they're actually making things a lot slower, even though they keep telling you it's faster. Sure, some completely new person is going to somewhere for the first time and maybe save half a second, but when they come back to it for the 10th time, they're now spending 5 extra minutes. I need to take you on a quick detour through ancient Greece, and I promise you this is going to pay off. So, there's this story about a poet named Simonides of CEO. He lived around 500 BC. It was at a banquet, and at some point during the banquet, he got called outside to meet a couple of visitors. While he was outside, the roof of the banquet hall collapsed. Everyone inside was killed. Their bodies were so badly crushed that the families couldn't identify them for the burial. And Simonides, who had been sitting in this banquet hall just minutes earlier, closed his eyes and walked through the room in his head. He remembered where everyone had been sitting. He remembered the guy on the left at the head of the table. He remembered the 2 cousins over by the wine. He remembered the old senator near the window. He walked the room in his memory, and he identified every single body. That's the story. And from that story comes a technique that the Roman senators and medieval monks and high school thespians all used for the next 2,000 years. They called it the method of loci, the method of places. And for those of you watching YouTube charlatans trying to sell you a way to improve your memory, they call it the memory palace. The trick is this: your brain is phenomenal at remembering places. It's terrible at remembering lists. So if you want to memorize something, you pick a place you know well: your childhood bedroom, the walk from your house to your school, the layout of your grandmother's kitchen, and you mentally walk through it. And you place the things you want to remember at specific spots along the route. A speech with 12 points, 1 point per room. A long poem, 1 image per doorway. When you need the information back, you walk the route in your head, and the information is right where you left it. I'll tell you where I learned where this worked, back in high school. And then in college, I did musical theater. I had to memorize lines, a lot of lines, whole scenes, whole songs, entrances and blocking and cues you come in on and the lines you exit on. And nothing on the page would stick. You'd sit there running your lines hours and hours later, and you'd always mess stuff up. I'd read the script 10 times, the words would just slide off my brain like water in a windshield. Hey, what's the cue? What's my line? Until somebody, I think it was my English teacher, her name is going fuzzy, I mean, it's really on brand for this episode, told me to walk the stage. Literally, stand in the spot where I say the line. Look at the chair that I'm going to sit on in the next beat. Touch the prop I pick up halfway through the monologue. Put the words in the place where they happen. And suddenly, the lines were just there. Not because I reread them a couple more times, but because I'd given them an address. This works, and has worked for almost 3,000 years. The reason is that your brain evolved to remember where things are. Because for most of human history, the difference between remembering where the food was and remembering what the food was called was the difference between being alive and a bag of bones in a cave. So now that you know what a memory palace is, let's go back to the rest of the story. Great UX is just a good menu. Basically, it's a memory palace somebody built for you. When you know that export is under file, 2 items down from open, you don't have to remember that as a fact. You remember it as a place. You've walked, or rather your fingers have. You've clicked that path 500,000 times. Your hand knows where the mouse goes before your brain catches up. The button isn't something you memorized. The button is somewhere you've been. Or you've memorized the key combinations, like Control F4. If you don't believe me, if you're on a computer right now, go press that right now. That's what competence actually feels like in software. It's not that you're smart, it's that you've walked the room. You know which menu hides the tool you're looking for. You know which corner of the screen the search bar lives in. You know that the keyboard shortcut you want is 2 fingers away because you've done it a million times and your hands have learned the route before your brain is even caught up. With AI, the powers that want to spend money are saying we don't need that. Just ask the genie and they can do it for you. But with the chatbot, there's no room anymore. There's no route. There's no place to put the memory. Every time you need to do a thing, you got to start back from zero. Instead of just doing what you need to do, you need to figure out how to do it, how to ask the right questions. So you type a question, you get an answer. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. So you spend the next 3 minutes tweaking things. And if you get it right, maybe you save that prompt somewhere you can refer back to when you need it again. And the next time you need it, you gotta look it up. Which variant did I use? What were the magic phrases? And when you put the prompt and start working again, you don't learn the path because there is no path. You learned a destination. You didn't learn the territory. Over time, you don't just lose the ability to find things. You lose the ability to imagine what's possible because you never walked the room. You don't know what's in it. You can't ask the chatbot about the feature you didn't know existed, like the /buddy command from Claude Dump Anyone. The chatbot can't tell you about the feature you did know existed because you don't know what you don't know, and the chatbot only responds to questions and it doesn't know what you don't know. You're now on a tool that refuses to teach you. You're not a user anymore, you're a supplicant. And this whole past week I've been chewing on that word for this episode. Supplicant, it fits. A supplicant is someone who asks things from a being that might or might not grant them. And this is a relationship you now have with the computers you paid for. So let's take stock of where we are. Memory palaces are real, and we've been real for 2,500 years, and your brain is wired to use them whether you've heard of the term or not. A good menu is a piece of software, is one of those places rebuilt and handed to you for free. Every time you click through it, you're laying down a mental map of the tool. That's what experts in software actually is. It is an intelligence, the map in your head. And when the chatbot interface does what it does to me, what it's doing to my son when he opens it up an app for the first time, what it's doing to every person who's been upgraded into a text box, it's bulldozed the map. It doesn't replace the map with a better one. It just takes the territory away, hands you a phone number for a concierge who may or might not pick up. Look, I get it. Going from the command line interface in early computer to GUIs was a huge leap in usability. Steve Jobs took that to a whole nother level with his minimalistic Rule of 7 design philosophy. It gave us intuitive interfaces that even your grandmother could use. But what that did was enhance our map, not remove it. We've finally come to the part that really matters. This is counterintuitive, but you might need to listen to it a few times because it's the part that explains why AI is making things easier as a lie. Menus constrain what's possible. That's not the cost of menu, that's the feature. When you open up a file menu and there are 8 items in it, you scan the 8 items and you pick one. It takes half a second. The menu has pre-made the hard decision for you. It has said, here's what matters in this context. Here are your options. Pick one, go. The constraint is a gift. The constraint is somebody else doing the cognitive work of figuring out what you might possibly want to do so you don't have to. And sure, you might have other ways you might want to do something or some weirdly complex process your corporate policy is forcing you to do. But that's the terrifying part of software. It truly is a tabula rasa. You can do literally anything, given enough money. But without those constraints, without a framework, a new problem arises. So we're replacing these constraints with a chatbot that has no constraint. A chatbot is the blank box you can do anything, which sounds great, which is in fact the entire pitch. Just tell it what you want. But here's what happens when you actually sit down to use it. First, you got to decide what you want. Not technically, not yet. You have to decide what you want in natural language, which is a totally different cognitive step than picking from a list. Picking from a list is recognition. Deciding in natural language is recall. Recognition is easy and recall is hard. That's a 2,000-year-old finding in cognitive science, and every chatbot is betting against it. Second, you have to figure out how to phrase it because the chatbot might misunderstand. So now you're word choosing. You're expanding your description long enough so it only gives you the ones that you want. It's like that magic genie trying to figure out what you want to do. You're composing. You're editing in your head even before you begin typing. Third, you go ahead and type it. Or if you're using a voice chat, you start saying it. And you hope. You have absolutely no idea whether this particular phrasing is a magic phrasing. You're basically casting a spell. Did you use the correct combinations of syllables that will write a letter to Santa? Or did you somehow inadvertently summon Satan? Fourth, it comes back with a wall of options that look almost the same but are slightly different. And you have to read them. And then you have to pick one, which is exactly the thing a menu would have been 4 steps earlier. Except now, the options are unstructured. They're unpreviewable and written in whatever order the model felt like. Finally, you pick one. You verify what it did, except, and this is the killer, there's no visible state in the interface anymore. There's no dashboard showing you your users. There's no sensor list. There's no green light, red light. It's just a chatbot saying, all done. And you have no way to confirm that is it in fact all done. Unless, of course, you have another 5 minutes of conversation with it. 5 steps, no map, to do the thing that used to be 2 clicks. You did not save time. You spent half your day figuring out what you wanted because nothing in the interface was helping you to decide. There were no landmarks. You're doing the computer's work for it. We were promised a future where the computer does the work. We got a future where we're doing the computer's work, and the computer confidently tells us, I'm sorry, Dave, I can't do that. Remember Samantha? Remember her 15 seconds? That's what the 2 clicks look like. That's what a menu looks like. That's what memory palaces feel like in your hand. The thing I was doing in my kitchen for 20 minutes was not easier. It was the opposite of easier. I'm not anti-AI. I'm anti-stupidity. There's a great quote from Rick and Morty, and it's on one of my favorite t-shirts. Because the world is so full of idiots that don't understand what's important. But you're right. Let's do it the dumbest way possible because it's easier for you. Look, I build with AI every day. I'm talking to Claude Model right now to help me think through this episode. I have, simultaneously, in some kind of insane juggling act, a sci-fi novel that I'm writing, a project game called Elysium, a Chrome extension called Creator, a hiring platform for job seekers called Super Trooper, there's a meal planning app, there's a SaaS for fact-checking disinformation, got my little WordPress site, tool that I built called Gbits. None of those projects would exist without AI. I am also not anti-automation. In fact, I am the complete opposite of anti-automation. I have spent literally the last 20 years of my career screaming at departments to automate their processing. 20 years. I've stood in conference rooms and pointed at people typing the same 14 fields out of a PDF into a database and said, you know, a computer can do this, right? And I've been told every single time, well, that's how we've always done it, or the auditors won't allow it, or Carol does this, and Carol's been here since 1979, and Carol would be very upset. And only now, only because some VP or CFO read a report about generative AI on an airplane, are these same people saying, you know what? Maybe we could automate the invoice processing. I literally want to rip my hair out. The thing I've been begging you to automate for over 2 decades is finally on the table because the technology to automate it has been wrapped in the word AI and made fashionable. Fine, I'll take it. Whatever gets us there. Except, it's not all sunshine and roses. In a rush to automate, we are automating exactly the wrong things. We are leaving Carol manually keying her invoices in the database because Carol's department hasn't gotten the memo yet. And we are replacing security dashboard with a chatbot. We're leaving the boring, mechanical, soul-killing data entry alone, and we're automating away the part of software where humans actually need to see, to think, to choose, and learn. We're automating the part that used to be a memory palace, and we're leaving the part that should never have required humans in the first place. We have it precisely, perfectly, and surgically backward. So let me draw this line as carefully as I can. AI as an accelerator for someone who already has a map in their head, that's magic. I can ask Claude to refactor a function, and I know the moment it hands the code back whether the answer is right or wrong, because I've been writing that kind of code for almost 3 decades. The model's fast. I am the judge, the model proposes, and I become the executioner. We ship something that neither of us would have shipped alone, and the part of my brain that holds the architecture of the thing keeps growing the whole time we're working. On the other hand, AI is a replacement for the menu. That's the rot. That's the 19-year-old who has never written a for loop being told, just describe what you want to do, and accepting whatever the model spits back because they have no internal model to check it against. That's the homeowner with a chatbot instead of a security panel. That's the brand new ADT customer 3 years from now who has never seen the old dashboard and doesn't know there was anything to lose. They're not being given a tool. They're being given an oracle. And an oracle is what you go to when you've already given up on understanding the question yourself. The sin isn't adding AI. The sin is removing the interface underneath. The ADT move wasn't we added an assistant. If they just added a chatbot on top of the old dashboard so I could ask questions when I came up with them, I wouldn't be recording this. I probably would have been thanking them. The sin was we added a chat bubble and took away the dashboard. Nobody has ever asked for this. Not in any vision of an optimistic AI future has anyone ever actually gotten rid of the buttons. Take Star Trek, the most beloved, most imitated, most culturally saturated version of a benevolent computer we have. Computer, tell me about yourself. The Enterprise computer can talk. The Enterprise computer can hear you. The Enterprise computer is functionally indistinguishable from a modern LLM, except it doesn't hallucinate and has all the time in the world. Computer, locate my next paragraph. That's a chatbot request. Gene Roddenberry called it in 1966. But if you watch the show for longer than 5 minutes, when the warp core is about to breach, Geordi doesn't say, "Computer, fix the warp core." He runs to engineering. Suddenly he's elbows deep in a console with 400 controls on it. He's physically moving things. The camera cuts to a panel with the lights on it, and then pans over the warp core, indicating what we're screaming about. And Geordi, he knows what they mean. And we trust him because we can see him knowing what they mean. When the ship is in a firefight, Captain Kirk doesn't say, "Computer, win the space battle." He doesn't say, "Computer, shoot the Borg." He goes over to a tactical station. He puts his hands on the console. He looks at the panel. He calls out orders that come from reading the state of the universe of his own dashboard in real time. Because when the stakes are actually real, you don't want a chat bubble. You want to see the thing. In fact, in my first novel, Elysium Rising, I gave the main characters an AI with, for all practical purposes, infinite computing power, those infinitrons. The kind of AI that doom bloggers lose sleep over. And you know what I did in the book? I let it run international corporate finance queries. I had it simulate trial holograms for training scenarios. I had it spin up complex legal analysis. It was a tool. The characters tasked it with specific things. It wasn't a central character because it wasn't trying to be everything. It was a really, really, really good hammer. Nobody in that book ever mistook it for a carpenter. Every optimistic AI future I've ever seen in fiction and film and the stuff I've written myself keeps the humans in the driver's seat and keeps the interface on the dashboard. The dystopia isn't the one where AI takes over, it's the one where AI removes the menu. Okay, so let's bring this all home. I want to introduce you to a man named Barry Schwartz. He's a psychologist, wrote a book in 2004 called The Paradox of Choice. The thesis, in one sentence, past a certain point, more options does not make people happier or faster. More options make people slower, more anxious, and less satisfied with what they ended up picking, and more likely to walk away from the decision entirely. He proved it with jam. He set up a tasting station at a grocery store with 6 jams on it. People tasted, people bought. He set up another table with 24 jams on it. People tasted, and most people walked away empty-handed. The bigger menu killed the sales. 20 years of psychology research has been confirming this ever since. Each individual piece about what's happening right now is arguably good. Automation is good. I want it. I've been begging for it for 20 years. AI as an accelerator is good. I use it every day in my programming. It removes tedious data entry. That's good. Making computers understand natural language is good. Letting people skip steps they don't need to do is good. Every single piece should be making things faster. And in isolation, each of these things is a win. In isolation, these things make the futurists give us what the future promised us. In isolation, each of these things should be saving you minutes a day, hours a week, weeks a year. And then somebody mixes them together with the bad thing, removing the menus. And what we get is the worst of every world at the same time. We get a chatbot that can technically answer anything, which means it answers absolutely nothing, which means I have to invent the prompt, which means I have to imagine the menu I no longer have, which means I have to enumerate options that used to be visible on the screen, which means I am now a Barry Schwartz customer at the 24 jam table. Except somebody has dimmed the lights, peeled the labels off the jar, and told me to describe the jar or jam I want from memory to a stranger who keeps asking me to rephrase the question. The automation worked. The interface worked. The natural language worked. And the combination is somehow slower than when none of this stuff existed in the first place. That's the paradox of choice made manifest in this new AI chatbot dystopia we're living through. This is the part nobody's putting on the slide deck. A good menu is a paradox of choice antidote. A menu with 8 items is someone else doing the hard work of saying, out of all the infinite things you could possibly do here, here are the 8 that actually matter. Pick one. The constraint is a gift. The constraint is what makes the tools fast. When you blow the constraint away and replace it with a chat box, you didn't liberate the user. You took the Death Star Lego set, shook it up, handed it to someone in the dark, and told them to describe what they wanted to a stranger and called it progress. I want to be careful about this part because I don't think the people who are doing this are evil. I don't think that they're stupid either. I think what actually is happening is way dumber than malice and way more human than greed. In the rush to AI everything, the chatbot is the low hanging fruit. It's the easy fix. Problem is, the easy fix isn't really a fix. The easy fix is a regression with a fresh coat of paint on it. Picture the meeting. Some executive comes back from a conference where every keynote had the word AI in the title. The board wants to know what the AI strategy is. The shareholders want to hear about the AI on the next earning call. The PM is being measured on AI first product velocity. Nobody in that room is asking the users anything. The users haven't been mentioned in this entire podcast in over 40 minutes. The room has decided that the company needs to look like it's doing something with AI. And the cheapest way to look like you're doing something with AI is to bolt a chatbot on the front end of an existing product and put out a press release. So that's what gets shipped. Not because anybody hates the users, it's because nobody in the meeting was actually thinking about the users at all. Despite the headlines, the deployments, the keynotes, the LinkedIn evangelists, depending on whose study you read, somewhere around 80% of corporate AI rollouts have shown no meaningful adoption from the actual workforce or actual customer base. 80%. Most of the chatbots that companies have proudly stapled onto the front of their products are sitting there unused, or worse, they're used once, hated so much, and then abandoned, which means the people building this stuff aren't failing to listen to users, they're failing to ask their users in the first place. They're reading slide decks, they're reading reports, they're reading each other. And the worst part about all this, because adoption is so low, the antidote they're proposing to bolster their numbers and validate their excessive spend on AI is to remove the AI and force people to start using it. Start tying performance metrics into how many AI tokens developers are using. So no, this isn't a villain origin story. This isn't Dr. Evil twirling a mustache next to his mini-me. It's something quieter and sadder. It's a whole industry trying to look like it's moving forward when it's very quietly rolling things back, gutting the dashboards, replacing them with text boxes, calling the regression an upgrade. Because looking like progress is cheaper than building progress, and the rooms where these decisions get made do not contain a single person whose job it is to push back of the human staring at the screen. That's a real failure mode, not malice, not even cost cutting. Just a giant collective game of telephone where the original signal, hey, make it better for people who use it, it got lost 3 rooms ago. So you've heard me talk about the abdication a few episodes back. That was the one about people handing over their agency because it was easier. You've heard me dismantle the mythology of AGI in the last episode, why the doom bloggers are wrong, and why the paperclip apocalypse is a story we tell ourselves to avoid looking at what's actually happening. This episode is a bridge between the two. Because while we were all scanning the sky for a robot uprising, something quieter is happening all around us. The menus are disappearing, not all at once. Even call trees are getting a makeover. Instead of calling up my bank, typing in 8675309 when calling the bank to check my balance, I now have to think about what I want to ask the voice assistant. Our memory palaces are being replaced by chat bubbles wearing a friendly little face, asking us how it can help us today. And every time one of those bubbles replaces a panel, somebody somewhere was sitting at a 24-hour jam table in the dark, taking longer than they used to, and being told the slowness was their own fault for not knowing how to talk to the robots. The AGI isn't coming to take your jobs. The chatbot is already here taking your menu. And you handed it over because somebody told you it would be easier.